just outside the chain-link fence of the airfield, thermos in hand. Gaze fixed on the old fighter jet parked near Hangar 6. Nobody spoke to him. Nobody asked why he was there. Didn't wear a badge, didn't carry a phone. Just watched like he was waiting for something. Then one morning, without a word, he stood up, crossed the flight line, and climbed straight into the cockpit. The sirens didn't stop him. Nothing did. Seconds later, the engines roared to life. Welcome to Veteran's Voice. Before we dive deeper, tell me in the comments from which city in the world are you watching this video today. And if stories like this move you, subscribe to the channel to help us share the voices that history forgot, one quiet legend at a time. He showed up before sunrise every single day. Same worn boots, same olive drab field jacket, same silver thermos with a faded Navy sticker peeling off the side.
Ow.
The guards at the gate stopped asking questions months ago. He never caused trouble. He just walked the perimeter fence, sat on the far bench near the maintenance hangars, and stared at the tarmac like he belonged there. Most assumed he was retired base personnel, maybe a mechanic or a ground crew who never really let go of the rhythm. A few thought he was someone's grandfather, harmless, quiet, forgettable. But there were details, subtle ones. The way he watched the young pilots run through checklists from across the fence, eyes following every gesture as if measuring them. The way he tilted his head slightly every time the old F-18 stationed on static display caught the morning light, like he knew its systems better than anyone still walking the flight line. And the way he stood up, always exactly at 0600 hours, without checking a watch. Some of the younger guys on base called him the Shadow, not out of fear, out of habit. He was always there, always silent, and no one really knew when he left. They never saw him walk out. He just wasn't there anymore. Captain Ryan, the head instructor, had noticed him too. He'd once asked the base manager, "You know anything about the guy who watches the flight line every day?" The manager had shrugged. Old vet, I guess. Keeps to himself, not on payroll, not on the list. Harmless. But something in Ryan's gut disagreed. He'd served long enough to know that real experience doesn't always come with rank or ribbons. Sometimes it came wrapped in silence and worn fabric. One day a group of recruits walked by him after morning drills. One of them, tired and overconfident, tossed a comment his way. Something about the crazy old plane watcher with nowhere else to go. The man didn't respond, didn't flinch, just kept staring out at the flight line like he hadn't heard a thing. But Ryan, watching from the command office window above, made a note. This man wasn't lost. He was watching for a reason. Whatever that reason was, it hadn't landed yet. The days passed and the old man remained a fixture, unmoving, unreadable. He never crossed the yellow line painted on the asphalt that marked the official boundary between personnel and restricted access. He just sat, listened, observed. Some recruits began speculating. One said he was probably a delusional vet. Another joked he might be waiting for a son who never came home. But it wasn't just young arrogance anymore. There was unease behind the mockery because, despite the jokes, no one could explain how he always knew when the trainers changed shifts, or how he seemed to glance up just seconds before a jet would break off its final approach. One afternoon, a maintenance tech named Ramos walked past him while wheeling a tool case toward the east hangar. Out of nowhere, the old man said quietly, "You've got a hydraulic leak near your port side actuator." Ramos froze, turned. "What?" The man didn't look at him, just nodded toward the tarmac. Ramos kept walking, confused. But later that day, during a routine inspection, they found a leak exactly where the man had said. The report never mentioned how it was spotted, but word spread. The guy on the bench wasn't guessing. Another time, during a simulation brief, the projector system failed. Everyone waited while tech support scrambled. 10 minutes passed. Then someone noticed the old man step quietly into the corner of the room, reached behind the mount, and twist one of the cable clamps. The screen flickered back on. He left without a word. The technician said nothing, just looked at the others, and muttered, "That's not on any manual." Captain Ryan started digging. There was no official record under his description. No access badge, no VA appointment history in the area, no confirmed ID. But the airbase was old. Records went missing, sometimes intentionally. Then one morning, just before dawn, Ryan walked out to the bench. He brought 2 coffees. The old man was already there, seated like always, hands resting on his knees. Ryan handed him one without speaking. The man took it, nodded once, and and sipped. After a long silence, Ryan said, "You flew, didn't you?" The man didn't answer, but the pause, slow, deliberate, was enough. Ryan tried again. "Which squadron?" This time a faint grin tugged at the corner of the man's mouth. He didn't look at Ryan when he replied. He just said, "The kind that doesn't leave numbers behind." Ryan didn't ask more, because that was the kind of answer you didn't follow with questions. And 3 days later, the impossible happened. In broad daylight, with instructors gathered near the hangars and recruits running morning circuits, the old man stood from his bench. This time, he didn't stop at the yellow line. He walked past it calmly. No badge, no clearance, no hesitation. He walked straight to the display jet, an old FA-18 Hornet, long decommissioned, parked for photo ops and ceremony salutes. Everyone thought it was just a shell until he opened the cockpit and climbed in. At first, no one reacted. A few instructors assumed it was part of a training scenario. Some thought the old man was confused, maybe about to be stopped by security. But then he flipped the first switch. The canopy hissed. The instrument lights blinked to life. Faint, flickering, but unmistakably real. The aircraft wasn't just a display. It had been kept operational for ceremonial flyovers. Not active, not armed, but flyable, and he knew it. A crew chief dropped his clipboard. Someone shouted, Hey, get him out of there." But before anyone could move, the old man was running through a startup checklist with the calm precision of someone who'd done it more times than he could count. Left MFD, right MFD, oxygen flow, pressure, everything in sequence. He didn't rush. He didn't flinch. The base intercom crackled. "Security to Hangar 6. Code red. Unauthorized cockpit access." The siren blared. Red lights spun. But the old man was already strapping himself in, adjusting the seat like he'd never left it. The engines began to spool. The roar wasn't deafening yet, but it was coming. A low, hungry hum that made every instructor turn toward the aircraft with disbelief. Captain Ryan ran out of the command post, headset half on, yelling, "Shut it down now!" But it was too late. The ground crew had disabled the override panel years ago, thinking the plane would never move again. The kill switch had been removed for an upgrade that never came. Inside the cockpit, the old man, calm, focused, pressed his fingers to the throttle, and with a smooth, unshaken motion, pushed forward. The Hornet rolled. Gasps broke across the tarmac. People ran. Security vehicles scrambled to intercept, but the nose wheel was already aligned with the taxi path. The old man turned the jet with precision, guided by instinct and memory alone, as if the years had never passed. The tower screamed through the radio. "Unauthorized aircraft movement on the south runway. Identify yourself immediately or you will be intercepted." There was no response, just the Hornet now aligned with the runway. Then it happened. The afterburner ignited, and the jet, once a monument to the past, came alive in a thunderous flash of fire and motion. It screamed down the strip faster than anyone thought possible for an aircraft that hadn't flown in over a decade. The wheels lifted, the nose tilted, and just like that, he was airborne. Silence fell over the airfield. In the control room, nobody moved. On the ground, instructors stood frozen. Recruits stared in disbelief. Then the aircraft climbed, not erratically, not dangerously, but with elegance, grace. A wide arc that caught the early morning sun just as it banked north. A slow, deliberate roll followed, flawless, executed with the kind of control only elite pilots master after years of training in war.
Oh.
Inside the control tower, someone whispered, "Who is that?" And Captain Ryan, now seated, headset slack around his neck, stared out the window and muttered, "That's not someone. That's something we all forgot existed." The Hornet circled once, high above the base, then dipped into a wide, controlled descent. The wheels touched the tarmac like feathers, softer than any landing most of the trainees had ever seen. No ground crew approached. No security stormed the jet. Everyone just watched. He taxied the plane slowly back toward the hangar, cut the engines, and sat still for a moment longer inside the cockpit. Alone in the silence that followed thunder, when the canopy hissed open, he didn't wave, didn't speak. He unbuckled, climbed down without assistance, and walked calmly toward the edge of the airstrip. In his hand, he held something. A weathered badge, not a current one. It's an old Navy ID, plastic yellowed, photo faded, but a name still visible. Captain Thomas H. Hoyt. One of the maintenance officers whispered it aloud, then another. And then slowly the ripple of recognition spread. Hoyt, the test pilot, the ghost from a Black Ops squadron that officially didn't exist. The one who flew through a lightning storm in '96 to save a crippled carrier's escort. The man who disappeared after refusing a medal for a mission no one was allowed to record. Everyone thought he'd vanished, but he hadn't. He'd been here every morning, watching, waiting. When he reached the bench, he sat down the ID, pulled his jacket tighter against the wind, and sat just like he had every morning before. But this time, no one ignored him. Captain Ryan stepped forward, eyes locked on the man who had just made history real again. He didn't salute. He didn't speak. He simply stood beside the bench and nodded. Later that day, a metal plaque was fixed to the bench. Reserved. Captain T.H. Hoyt. He never stopped flying. The recruits who had laughed now walked a little straighter. The instructors trained harder. No more jokes. No more looks, because now they understood some legends don't live in books. They sit beside runways. They stay quiet until the day they remind you what greatness looks like. So now I ask you, have you ever seen someone like that? Someone the world wrote off until one quiet act changed everything. Say their name in the comments. Tell us their story. Because here on Veterans Voice, we believe the greatest heroes are often the ones who wait in silence until the world is finally ready to see them. Thank you for watching. If this story moved you, share it, subscribe, help us keep their legacy alive, one flight at a time. Next time you see someone sitting alone, quietly watching the sky, look again. He might be the reason it's still.